everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Mayor. Saurabh here. Can hear
Hi,
you.
Saurabh. Sure, I think people have raised hands to say that they can hear us. Great. Hi, this is Mihir Lakhani. I'm marketing head at NMMS Global Access. I'll be your host today. It's a very interesting year. We've none of us have seen the same life that we've ever seen before. Life has changed. Way of working has changed. The way we shop, the way we eat, the way we travel, everything has changed drastically. Um, so much so that way of working in industry and corporates have changed, and it has not left behind marketing and to change the way it works. What we today's topic is to understand, how marketing in the new normal is changing, and how we, a lot of great marketers are changing the way they've been marketing before versus now. I'll Today we have some great marketers with vast deep experience in different fields with us to help us understand their experience, their understanding of what the new normal is and how marketing is changing for all of us. I would like to welcome Saurabh Nath, who's Associate Director Marketing at Kellogg's. Um, uh, and and he's always been passionate about consumer products and been working with Kellogg's and before that he was with Kimberly Clark's. He is also a passionate, he's also passionate about sports and to say so cycling. Um, um, I would also love to invite Amit Wama, who's passionate about startups and been working with a lot of startup. Currently, he's working with Rapido, which is an logistics, consumer logistics and bikes startup. And I would also love to invite Abhijit Lahiri, who's marketing head at Redington. He has over 20 years of experience with telecom digital products. Um, all of them have very deep experience into their verticals and want to understand from them how they see things changing. Abhijit, if may I ask you to unmute yourself. I think unmute as of. Thank you, sir. Um, so Abhijit, in case if you could suggest how consumers have changed in digital and digital products market in last 1 year.
Right. So what I will say is that, I am trying to project a sense of normalcy. I'm in office, and that's why, you can see my office cabin, so of course, it's still not normal. So that's why I have this. So it's quasi normal is what, one is trying to project. And hopefully, we will get back to a kind of normal period in the days to come, because we have enough of, all this thing happening, from end of March. Well, before I really you answer your question, I will take a couple of minutes to say that how I had actually reacted, when this COVID hit us. So personally, how I had reacted, and what are the lessons I learned from that, and probably there are lessons for everybody from there. See, my reaction was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, when this, everything got shut down and everything, because I realized, oh God, the first thing that people cut down is marketing, because marketing is all about spending money. And, there are very few companies during a downturn, spend a lot of money. They usually cut down money. So what it means that if they are going to cut down money, what happens to somebody like me? So I have, in fact, and I was reading all these doomsday stories and stuff like that in Warren Buffett and all that. And then, there was a panic reaction. So I just, I said that, okay, this is the time I take out whatever money I have in the mutual funds and stock markets and all that. And I took it out, cut a huge loss at that time so that I have enough, funds for 1 year. So that I do not get into trouble in the next 1 year. But, as luck would have it, when there is a downturn, it proved to be the best thing that could have happened for a company like ours, because we are into, technology distribution, mobile distribution, laptop distribution, technology product distributions. And we saw our sales really, soar because of the work from home culture. Because when the actual lockdown happened, one could not see anything. But when this work from home thing started, everybody needed, laptops. Everybody needed, technology products. Even small kids needed, laptops and, iPads and mobile phones and whatnot. And our sales skyrocketed. So here I was panicking because I'm a marketing professional. So there was a knee-jerk reaction that I had taken. And there you have, in the same year, we are just in a way, for want of a better expression, laughing all the way to the bank. But there are other industries. So there is no one size fits all kind of thing, I would say, that, it has to be different for different people. I'm sure that if you are the MD of a company whose mainstay is lipsticks, then you would be deeply affected by that. But in our case, we actually benefited from this so-called crisis. And with things becoming more and more normal next year, in a way, I can foresee some amount of our sales actually coming down. So you have to take it, everything has its own lessons. So there are, what I say, that there are upsides towards for any downside. So we have to take it, one at a time. I think I will let you ask others, and I come back again on more on this.
This is very interesting. I think technology had seen a spike in demand towards April, where people realized that they'll have to stay home for very long and don't know till how long. And I think prices must have also gone rooftop. How was that period for you? It was less of marketing and more of demand fulfilling.
You're asking me, or is it?
I was still asking you, because this is very interesting angle that we are looking at.
No, see, there was this COVID crisis. I would break it down into two phases. One was that initial lockdown when everything was shut. So there you could not see the future. It was really, really dark, because there was, even if you want to sell, even if there is huge demand for your product, there was no channel through which you can sell. So it was absolutely dark. We could not visualize the demand for the product. Only when things started opening up and it started with online, then actually, then we could visualize that, oh God, the demand is really high. So whatever we have stopped in terms of marketing, because if the channel is not open and we are, unless until you are trying to do a so-called brand building, there is no point in marketing for a category like ours. So we stopped everything. But then after that, 1 month period, we restarted, and we restarted as if nothing had happened. So life was normal. And of course, we will come to that, how the monies got shifted in different heads and all that, and how the monies are now coming back to some of the old form now. So we will talk about that. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So I'll want to ask Amit. Amit, how's your experience been during lockdown? Amit?
Sure, Meher. First of all, thanks for giving me opportunity to share my thoughts. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Hello. Okay,
yes,
so I was saying, first of all, thanks, Meher, giving me opportunity. Yeah. So I was saying thanks for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this platform. Uh, I heard Abhijit, and then I was also listening you. So actually, the industry where I am like a working, unfortunately, we are on the another side of a coin altogether. So because I fall under like a travel industry, even if you see my past experience as well, I was a part of a Zoom car. So unfortunately for us, all the like a travel hospitality has taken a bad hit, right? And when the lockdown started, so our business has gone zero. It's like a totally zero. Like a initial for a few days because within bike taxi we have two side of a business. One is a B2C, which is like a link business, and another business is B2B, where we are empowering Swiggy, Zomato, delivery of the world from the back end. So that business has taken like a definitely B2C business, link business has taken a hit badly because it was almost zero. But on a contrary, B2B business where we were empowering all the other brands, that has gone up drastically. So earlier the contribution which we used to get from B2B side was 5%. Now we are getting 30%, right? But if you talk about the overall picture, the overall customer and consumer behavior has changed drastically. If we talk about the way they used to consume content, their user touch points, that has changed drastically, right? The way we used to target a user, maybe pre-COVID world, now we are targeting them in a different way altogether. All the businesses, as Abhijit said, which has to do with end mile connectivity to a consumer, whether it's e-commerce or whether it's a home delivery, whether it's a OTT consumption, that has like a gone up. It has gone to a sky, right? On a contrary, if we talk about some other business line like hospitality, travel, that has taken a backseat altogether. And I think if you talk about the revenue, right now we are recovering our revenue. It will again take at least 6 to 8 months to recover, fulfill the top line which we have earlier in pre-pandemic. But it was a really a good journey. It was a blessing in disguise as well. I will talk about that later, that how it's actually a blessing in disguise for a brand. Because if you talk about the normal operational time when a brand is running at its overall pace, then you never get a time to overhaul yourself. You never get a time to do some experiments. Where on the contrary, Corona has given you that time where you can rethink of your product, where you can establish new functionalities and benefits within a product itself. So we have done that during Corona. So yeah.
Wow, that's actually very interesting. Where's there are the two different ways of working with consumers, and one of them's given you a very very good positive side. Sure. Saurabh, how about you? Will you be able to help us understand how consumers changed for you during pandemic, and how was your experience during pandemic?
Thanks a lot, guys, for having me on board. I think very fascinating stories both from Abhijit and Amit. And fascinating because I see a lot of parallels, right? So whatever Abhijit was talking about is a very similar journey that we have had at Kellogg's. For example, I break it down into two segments, right? One was obviously when the lockdown was announced. The 21 days, the first 21 days that lockdown was announced and everything was shut. Our business suffered greatly, right? Because our factories were shut. Our supply chain was completely shut, right? So even if there was a lot of inherent demand sitting, there was nothing, there was no way of servicing that demand. Production was shut as well at that point of time. And that's exactly what was happening. And after the lockdown ended, I think we have seen a tremendous upsurge. And it's probably one of the better years that we've had in the past. And it's largely because the category that we operate in has become very relevant, right? You typically, why should people consume Kellogg's has become very relevant because uh, largely because of two things. One was obviously, nutrition became top of mind. So you did not want to have things, or you were worried about doing the right thing for your family and for your kids and for yourself. And Kellogg, which stands for nutrition, overall, and consumers understand that really well. That was top of mind. So it really helped us. The second point was convenience, right? So Kellogg also as a category is a convenience-based delivery, right? It is, you get a bowl of milk, you put Kellogg's in it, cut a couple of fruits, and your breakfast is sorted, full of nutrition. I think that's another piece which has really helped us. So the combination of the need for convenience increasing and the need for nutrition increasing is something that actually helped us, drive our sales, and that has remained. And to the point that Abhijit was making, I have seen a lot of upstocking, right? So, my categories of Kellogg's muesli, granola, and cornflakes, all of them are growing in very high double digits. But some of that growth is going to go away, right? And that's going to be interesting because, as Jan or Feb hits, when people start going back to their offices and schools, you would want to see how much of this behavior change have you been able to do, because largely what has happened is the consumer has changed his behavior, his or her behavior themselves, right? Some of them have replaced, let's say, a poha or an upma, or even a Maggi, or a paratha with cornflakes or with muesli and granola, and that's why we've grown. So I think that is what has happened. Very interestingly, from a consumer behavior point of view, as I was telling you, this has been a time of extreme stress for the consumer, right? And the great thing about being in a consumer business is talking to consumers doesn't stop. So even throughout March, April, May, Jan, June, etc., we have been talking to consumers over WhatsApp. So I think typically you go and meet consumers in their households, what we typically call consumer connects. But we did it over WhatsApp, right? So it was completely seamless. You could see the consumer, you could see their household, you could see their moods and how exactly they were talking and so on. I think one thing was very clear: there was a lot of stress on the Indian homemaker, and it's largely because this was slightly different. This was, there is a pandemic, but there's also a recessionary scenario in this pandemic, right? A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people had to keep their shops shut. Small businesses did not know how to survive. And, there were very interesting stories wherein women were very clearly saying that I don't know how I'm going to pay them next month's rent, right? Just because my husband's shop has been closed for the last 2 months and the demand is anyways going to be low. And therefore, for the mother or the homemaker of the household, trying to manage a budget became a very important thing, right? And when you're talking about a budget, obviously you have to compromise on a few things. But from a mother's point of view, it was very clear that I'm not going to compromise on two things. I will not compromise on education of my children. I will not compromise on the nutrition of my family, right? And that is where Kellogg's brilliantly fitted in, and that's why that's the reason why my category became very relevant in this point in time. The second reason that I was telling you, which was convenience, was all about a typical homemaker used to make about 3 meals in a day, right? It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and so on, or typically a snack as well. So 3.54 meals in a day. Now, suddenly, because everybody was in the house, the kids are not going to school, right? So everything is happening from the house. The husband is not going to office. If there are, you're staying with in-laws, then there are those many people in the household. So imagine being cooped up inside a house with all these people. What is happening is those 3 meals or 4 meals suddenly became 8 meals, because every 1 hour or 2 hours, somebody or other wants to eat something, right? So the mother was, she was actually very stressed, saying that, hey, I don't know, because now every hour after my kid gets done with his math class, he comes and says, Mama, mere liye kuch bana do. Or my husband says, can you make me a chai and can you give me a snack because I have to attend my Zoom call, right? So suddenly from a 3.5 meals, her life became 6.57 meals, right? And therefore, Kellogg's again fitted in very beautifully, because at least one or two of those meals we could take care of very easily. Yeah, you in the morning, don't worry about your breakfast. You have to make other meals throughout the day. But when it's talking about breakfast, just go ahead and look at Kellogg's and you can get a 5-minute breakfast ready, which is full of nutrition. So I think the combination of those is what has really helped us. And as I said, now it's interesting to see, typically in consumer behavior, you will see people coming in, which is adoption, and then you will see people going out, which is called lapsage, right? The interesting point is how much of lapsage is going to happen and how much are we going to be able to retain, right? How much of this is actual behavior change versus temporary change, which will sort of go off. So that's going to be interesting for us to sort of look at.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think changing the breakfast for Indian consumer is the most difficult uphill task, right? And I think that one big shift has happened, while what you're suggesting is also very interesting, that it's something that we'll have to wait and watch how consumer continue to behave. But sudden acceptance or larger acceptance is I think something that you definitely seen.
Correct.
Um, sure. So, Saurabh, will you also be able to tell us how you've changed your marketing to adopt to this change,
Right.
your strategies to adopt to this change, and probably take advantage of
Right.
the situation
Right.
or to make use of the changed consumer behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think very early on, obviously when there was a complete lockdown, we went off media completely. I think all the major advertisers went off media because it didn't make sense at that point in time. After that, what has happened is a lot of advertising still went down even after the lockdown because no new content was getting made, right? So all the serials were on reruns, no new content is getting made. If there is no new content and there's no new episode of Diya Bati and all of those shows, then what is the homemaker going to watch? So we noticed that there was a very big shift that happened to movies as a genre. So there were changes that were happening in the media landscape. I think, if you look at many, many years, I don't think media has changed so rapidly and evolved so rapidly that it has happened in the last 6, 7 months, right? So a lot of shift happened from GECs to movies, to lifestyle, and to OTT, because OTT, everything was on demand, right? So, you could watch anything and everything on Hotstar and Prime and Amazon Prime. So I think that is what happened. We were very clear that there is a flip side to it. The flip side is advertising on TV became very cheap, right? Suddenly, because the cost of one GRP became very less because people were not advertising to that level. And therefore, for us, it was very clear saying that this is an opportunity and let's keep at it because we are a category leader. We want to, keep building the category. And as a category leader, you don't want to take your pedal off, take your foot off the pedal of, developing the category. So for us, it was very clear that we will continue to invest behind media. We made some shifts in terms of putting more money on digital, putting more money on YouTube and Hotstar. Within TV, we took a call of moving some monies from GECs onto non-content dependent genres like I told you, like news. For news was very big, by the way. News became suddenly very big. So news and movies is where we put a lot of our money. I think that's primarily what we did in terms of communication. In terms of and brand building, the second bit that we did was we put a lot of money behind digital and social. And, because this was a time for us, for example, when the lockdown was announced, we were all about saying, how do I drive the category relevance? So we came out of the campaign, which was called 21 Days, 21 Recipes, right? It was a very simple campaign saying, next 21 days of lockdown, every single day you will have to, Kellogg's recipe done by Ranveer Brar, went on all social platforms. So we put a lot of money behind that because it was topical and relevant for the consumer. The third major shift was, innovation that Kellogg's didn't do, but a lot of companies in the FMCG space did. So, whether it's Marico coming out with Veggie Clean or, Savlon or Dettol actually going and, coming out with sprays, disinfected sprays. I think the hygiene category took off brilliantly and they sort of innovated on the fly, right? So I think they've been very quick to sort of understand what the consumers want and deliver. At our end, obviously food doesn't change, right? So you can't suddenly bring out a food. But what we definitely did is we understood that affordability is going to become more important, which is lower price points are going to become much more important. And therefore, we went ahead and we launched a corn rupees 10, strawberry rupees 10, and start looking at the lower unit price points. So that's primarily how we've sort of, taken our decisioning in terms of marketing and sales.
That's actually very interesting to understand how the shift of monies on media happened from TV to digital, and how change your price point very very swiftly, within short time. That's very challenging for a lot of businesses at scale, right? Because everything planned for 6 months, 9 months from now. So that must be like really interesting and very swift. We'll want to understand a little bit of more details about that a little later. Sure. Abhijit, in case you can tell us how things change in marketing and media for you basis the understanding of consumer.
Okay. See, what happened was that, when demonetization happened, what happened? People were forced to move to so-called digital currency. Okay, primarily the Paytms of the world gained. And people who have never had, loaded Paytm or any such, app on their phones, they were forced to do that. And, they were forced to use it because there was no other choice because cash all of a sudden was not there. So it called for a behavior change. Similarly, during this period, what happened was that, one of our mainstays, because whatever advertising we do an advertising with an aim of selling. Okay, because we are very clear, because whatever advertising you see that we do for Apple or iPhone, other things, it is driven by an offer, which is basically a cashback or an EMI or a exchange. And basically we want people to buy the product. So our advertising is that, even though it's not a classical direct response, but the objective is a direct response. We are not into brand building. We want to sell a product. Now, print is very important when it comes to a direct response communication. Print all of a sudden was not there. It's gone. It was gone. So one medium, and print is the most expensive medium as far as advertising is concerned. So your most expensive medium, your mainstay medium was gone. So that's a huge, one. There are two ways to look at it. One was that there was a saving because you are not spending on print. Second thing was that here is a medium, which was your mainstay medium, that is gone. So what happens? So which is the medium that gained? It is like what I mentioned about demonetization. If the digital currency gained, here digital advertising gained. And there was a disproportionate spend on digital. Because today what has happened is that in marketing mix, everything is important. Like you have in food, like if you give somebody too much of dessert, it's bad. He can't have it. So you have to have, all kinds of things, in a proper meal. Similarly, in marketing, different mediums are very important. So in that period, what happened was that your print was gone. Outdoors had also gone for a toss. Now in our outdoors, we primarily focus on airports. Now airports were shut for a long, long time. And then it started, limping back. And even today, it's probably at 70% of normalcy. Radio took a backseat because, people were not traveling and, people were not on the roads, or fewer people were on the roads. So radio is another medium that we were using, was not there. So television is something that we use very, very little. We use it, but not so much. We did a television campaign this time. But, what has happened was that because of the circumstances, we were forced to kind of shift almost 80% or 70% or 80% of our monies to digital. Now, whether was it something we would do in a normal times? The answer is no. We are slowly coming back to a more of a normal scenario. As print has come back from this quarter, we have started advertising on print. We never actually quit our airport properties. We actually, we actually negotiated great deals with the airport guys, and we are continuing with that. Whatever little outdoor we used to take, we have kind of stopped it. We have not taken outdoors. Radio is something we still haven't started, but we are being, kind of offered some free radio advertising and stuff like that. We might fall for that. Maybe from next quarter, which is from January onwards, we might restart radio. So to answer your question very specifically, from 80% digital, we are slowly coming back to a more or less a normal marketing spend. And things will only become more and more normal because yes, there will be some behavior change that will be there. Because see, when it comes to online purchases, I will tell you that, some behavior changes we have noticed. What happened was that we sell, say, for example, your Apple products to this APR, which is Apple Premium Resellers. Now, because of this pandemic, everybody had to start their e-commerce platform because that is something that, they did not want to miss out.
Completely.
Okay. Now, in terms of consumer behavior, we find e-commerce only accounts for 5% of their sales. 95% sales is still through their brick and mortar. Maybe they are doing home delivery. Maybe people are ordering through phone and they are doing a home delivery, but it's not through e-commerce. When it comes to e-commerce, people are still stuck with a Flipkart or an Amazon. So some of the behaviors, which probably, I'm saying that, what happens is that people's memory is short. So a lot of things will eventually become very normal. I'm not saying that it will become normal as we start 2021. Maybe in the second half of 2021, things will more or less become normal. And after 2022, if we do not have a recurrence of this, this thing, I think the consumer behavior will be more or less same. what it was in the pre-COVID. But, you know, there are certain behavior changes will be there in terms of people being more technology savvy. You know, I mean, people who never used to use a Paytms of the world and, phone pays of the world, they will use that still. So there will be some behavior change that will happen. So from a very high digital only, we are slowly coming back to a more wholesome meal, what I would say. That, I mean, we are having still that there is a bit of a digital skew, but yeah, we are coming back to the overall marketing mix.
So, Abhijit, in case you can also help understand how, the consumer purchase behavior changed during the time, probably a drastic. So, what you were mentioning that people started buying more on e-commerce. However, premium resellers would not be able to drive more than 5% of their sale through online platforms. So, how the overall sales changed from offline channel to online channel, and does it continue to be some way heavy on online channels like Amazon and Flipkart?
See, online channel, there is a skew. For example, 60%, I specific up to Apple without, it's not I'm not giving away any company secret. 60% of, say, for example, Apple sales is happening through the Flipkart and Amazons of the world online. Okay. Now, is it only because of the consumer behavior change? I would say partly, yes, because during this time, more and more people are buying from the e-commerce platforms. The other thing is that what you call a slightly artificial thing which happens, which these people put money on their pocket because they're competing. It's like a Pepsi Coke kind of a fight which is going on. So both of these guys are putting money from their pockets. So a product which is otherwise available at 35,000 rupees is available on the platform for a few days for 27,000 rupees. So naturally, there is a huge demand for the product on these platforms. So that's the behavior change which has happened. But as I'm saying that right now, yes, there is an online skew. But as things start getting more and more normal, this behavior change, if earlier it was 40 and 6, if earlier it was 30 and 70, 30 online and 70 offline, maybe it will not go back to 30, 70. It might end up at 40, 60. So that's the change. Yes, there will be some change, but it's not going to be a drastic change.
That's interesting. That's interesting that consumers are going to have shift back to some of the things that they were doing before. We'll actually have to wait and see, how it pans out. While I hope that all of things become a lot better, not normal as it was before. So I'll come back to you with some more interesting question in a bit. I'll quickly want to understand from Amit how. Amit, will you be able to help us or guide us understand how marketing has changed for you during and how's it now?
Sure, Meher. So I think as Abhijit and Nath was telling us that they have like a point of sale, right? They have to sell their product to a customer. On the contrary, we are a service provider and we are a digital first brand. So whatever sales we do online. Everything is happening online. Uh, so to be very honest, if you talk about how the marketing has changed, so we haven't seen any change because predominantly we are the company who believe on performance marketing, who believe on marketing which can drive sales. And whenever we do like a performance, so we have like a different vertical. We rely a lot on performance marketing and user retention, right? Which is like a CRM or customer lifecycle management. And we pay like a lot of focus on that because we always believe that customer retention is a holy grail, right, of a growth. If you cannot retain your customer, because we are a brand which is a very high frequency, high users brand, people are using our bike taxi like a 6 times in a month. Some people are using 20 times to 40 times in a month, right? So average RPC repeat users, you can say, is like a 5. So people are approximately using 5 times, right? So whenever we talk about marketing, so we have divided into 2 or 3 buckets, you can say. One is the performance, second is the retention. And whenever we cannot attain the required growth through performance and retention, then we move towards a brand, right? And that's how we work on that. It's a bottoms up approach where you try to fulfill all the buckets which are providing you better ROI. So predominantly we are a digital first brand. So whatever we are doing on digital marketing only, or you can say growth marketing. Now we call it growth marketing, not a performance marketing or digital marketing, because we have taken we have moved away from the digital marketing, which is like a just channel based marketing. We have incorporated all the learning, all the data points into a funnel and into a product itself, right? Now we try to figure out growth hacks so that you can get better users in terms of lifetime value or in terms of retention through marketing itself, right? And then during this whole process, whatever you are getting through, let's suppose if you have to talk about brand awareness, you have to talk about brand building, you have to talk about product integration. So it's like a 360-degree approach, right? But which starts with the ROI. So even pre-corona period, we were doing a similar things, but unfortunately, as I said, because we were running really fast, we never got a chance to improvise our product, right? In today's marketing, definitely you have acquisition channel, you have retention channels, you have offline, online, different kind of channels, right? Where you can advertise. But I think the major thing is how you can retain your user and the data crunching. How many different data points you can acquire against your user so that you can engage with them in a better way. So what we have done during 3 months from maybe you can say mid-March to June, because we were not doing it, we were not running any operation on B2C side of a business. We just try to engage our users in a better way, right? What we have done, we have created a really strong social media connect with them. We were talking with them on different content levels, right? We're just trying to engage with different content providers so that their top of the mind or top of the mind recall for Rapido will not go down drastically. And whenever we'll come back into a market, again, we can regain or regain that kind of transactions and users which we are using earlier so that it won't get churned, right? So during a lockdown, we were doing that. Post lockdown, we during these 3 months, we got a really good time period. We have improvised our product. We have incorporated different kind of benefits. We have launched 2 or 3 new product line items. So earlier we don't have C2C, we don't have hire, we don't have corporate. So we have launched these 2 or 3 products. Even we have launched auto itself. Then we have launched one product for Kirana stores, right? Where you can book a order and then you can deliver it through Rapido. So we have came up with different line of items and different SBUs so that it will enhance our product offering, right? But if you talk about marketing, what we have done post-corona, we have optimized our marketing drastically. Let's suppose earlier we were running our marketing at an overall CIR of 15% cost income ratio. Right now we are running it at a 5%, right? Because what we are doing, we're just trying to get back those users who has done a transaction pre-COVID. And for that, we are not spending money. We are relying our own CRM. We are relying on different kind of tools like MoEngage, CleverTap, which can enhance the journey, which can create a journey, and then you can create different kind of interventions. If you see overall marketing, right? So whenever we talk about Google, Facebook, or maybe any other channel, right? So actually they are providing you a distribution channel. We have also figured out that within India, you have a different kind of a providers like a Paytm, Flipkart, who has a really vast base. They are talking to 400 million users or 600 million users. You can also try to do a piggy riding where you can capitalize their base and you can sell your product, right? So we have also done a PW integration, the API integrations with all these partners. So right now, if you go on Paytm, if you go on Flipkart, if you go on PhonePe, you will find Rapido over there. So you can also book a ride over there. So this is just not like you're providing a service. It's also providing you really good brand visibility as well. Because whenever you're going on that, because you know that all these Paytm aggregators, payment aggregators has gone up drastically during this Corona period, right? Because people are doing all the online transactions. They were just trying to keep themselves away from all kind of a cash dealings, right? So when their number was going up, you're also putting your logos over there. You're also putting your offering over there, which is also enhancing your conversions, which is also enhancing your visibility on a brand side. So that is all which we have done. We have done a lot many things to improvise the overall user journey so that it become really seamless. So I think it happens every time with every brand. So whenever a customer comes on your product, on your homepage, till your conversion, or maybe you can say the point of payment, right? We call it payment page, or maybe some people call it thank you page, where you put a pixel. So if you talk about how many steps he's taking and how you can make those steps, or how you can reduce those steps, and how you can make it more frictionless, right? So we have also worked on that. We have figured out what is the smallest path which a user is taking, and we have done in-app journey. We have figured out how users are going, where they are getting drop off, how we can reduce the leakages, right? How we can enhance different product in it, how we can provide different offering in it, how we can maybe collaborate with some other brands so that we can provide them an offer which will enhance the overall engagement. So we have done all those things during those 3 4 months, and right now we are getting the benefit of it.
That's really great. So how's post open up experience for you? How's the consumer behavior? Is that as similar to what it was before?
No, actually not. So actually, pre-COVID level, we were doing 4 lakh transactions every day, right? So if you see, because of Corona, so many people have moved on their personal vehicle, right? But unfortunately, if you talk about overall India, only 4% people have their driving license. They don't know how to drive, right? And because we are a developing country, people doesn't have that kind of a deep pocket that they can take Ola, Uber, or maybe taxis, right? So they are bound to take public commute. Unfortunately, that public commute was not there. Locals was not there. Buses were not there, and people are bound. And if you talk about the overall infrastructure of India, it's very broken up, right? You won't get public commute maybe on a outskirts, or maybe on some areas at late hours, right? From there, we got a really good advantage. From June onwards, we have witnessed 30% growth month on month, which was a really good number. So though we have lost some users who have moved on their personal vehicles, we got new chunk of users who were taking a ride maybe on some public commute. And because of, you will find like it's a close proximity, you will find a lot of users over there, and the chances or risk of getting corona is really high. So people have moved out from those public commutes, and then they started taking bike, taxi, or some other options. We are also got benefit from that. But still, as you know that still in IT sectors, most of the IT companies has given work from home till June, July 2021. Some has given like a December 2021. So all the people are not on road, but 50 70% people are on road. Even we have like a recovered 70% of our top line, which is a pretty good number. We haven't expected that we will get this kind of recovery in a short period.
That's really good to know that the recovery is so much better than what you expected. However, I'm sure that 2021 will be much better for the business. Right? People will want to completely move away from. A lot of people will want to completely move away from using a public vehicle, and probably get onto a ride sharing, or a personal ride using an app like yours.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Amit, you also suggested that a lot of technology has been used by you to improve the lifetime value of
Correct.
consumer that you return. Will you also be able to tell us that if there is any shift in what technology you're using before to now, or dependency on a technology that you had before versus now, to improve your revenue per consumer?
Sure. I think the point is we haven't seen a drastic improvement or drastic change in number of tools or the way tools were working earlier. Definitely, we are talking about predictive analytics, right? We are talking about user retention, or maybe retention tools like MoEngage, CleverTab. We have fraud detection, or tools like AppsFlyer, which is already there, right? Definitely, they have enhanced their product. And how they enhance their product, whenever you go to them and you talk to them and tell them that these are the 3 problem statements which you are facing, they will enhance those products, right? But I think the best thing which we have done, we just try to analyze data, because right now you have a hell lot of a data, user data. Google and Facebook are capturing each and everything, your geolocation, your preference. Even we are like taking all the data points from our users, your date of birth, where you are going, because we have like uh, whenever you take a ride, so it's like a geo map, right? We know that from where you're taking a ride, at what time you're taking a ride, when you're coming back, right? So what we have done, we have created a different intervention based upon our data. Even we have like a use predictive analytics that which customer will come, how many times within a month, and at what time he will take a ride. So let's suppose if you're not taking a ride at night, then maybe I can come up and I can give you some offer which will entice you and make you to take that ride, right? Make you convinced to take that ride. So we have done those kind of analysis. Definitely we have like a used lot of Python, and we have done a lot of modeling on that. We have created a lot of dashboards so that we can capture this kind of a behavior of our user, that when he's taking rides, so that we can cross sell and upsell to them. We can talk about different kind of a proposition altogether. As I was telling you that we have launched C2C, which is like a customer to customer kind of a service. Then we have launched corporate. So we were also talking to those users based upon their ticket sizes, that which kind of a services they can take. Let's suppose a user is not stepping out from their home, then we were pitching them C2C, because we know that if they're not stepping out from their home, at least they can send courier to their loved ones, right? Then you have like so many festivals in between. Diwali was there, Navrats was there. So at that time we were like we have figured out those time periods, and we were like talking to those users, why don't you use this service, why don't you use that service? So that's how we were like enhancing the overall ROI and overall user retention. So that is what which we have done. If we talk about tools, so we haven't used any new tools. Whatever we were using earlier, we have used that. But the best point is that we have used a lot of data. We have realized that there is a lot of things which is relying on that data, or if you realize, if you cut that data into smaller pieces, and if you analyze it, then you come up with different kind of interventions and campaigns which can enhance the overall profitability.
That's really nice. So I'll want to also try and understand from Saurabh and Abhijit. Saurabh and Abhijit, in case if you could both come together and tell us how things has shaped up for you in terms of measurement, right? So Amit has a very direct measurement based business, when he's able to measure things from media to revenue within one platform, and do a deep analysis. How has it changed for you, Abhijit?
50% of our money is wasted. Now, I do not know which 50% is wasted. So we are still, very much in that. I mean, we don't want to make marketing very boring and, very so-called, I know that there is something called today performance marketing. Now, performance marketing is when you have an end-to-end sale is happening. For example, performance marketing is when you have a digital, your selling tool is also digital. For example, in Flipkart, whatever we do, we call it a performance marketing, because we advertise and then we see that how many people are actually buying. Now that's where you can actually figure out how many people are actually buying, which is a direct result of the advertising you do. Otherwise, I mean, all these Googles of the world, they have come out with this, so-called digital and offline things, where they say that based on that location data, so many people after seeing a communication in a digital platform have actually gone to that particular store and stuff like that. But there is no way you can conclusively say that how many people have actually bought because of that particular ad. Similarly, we see that in newspaper advertising you do, I mean, there are measurement metrics, but it is not a foolproof thing that, the moment you put an ad on a day and the next day that day and the next day there are spikes in sales. And there are mediums like outdoors, hoardings where, I mean, you just cannot, it is not possible to measure. So we are not too much of caught up into this, measurability that way, so that we actually kill, the very discipline itself by trying to measure. Like, we spend 5 rupees on doing the marketing or advertising, and we spend 10 rupees to figure out, whether that advertising has worked or not. Yes, there is research, there is all those things are there, but we don't want to go, I mean, walk that path too much if your product category is not like that. The example that Amit was saying, because the product category is such that, I mean, measurability is very much possible. But in our case, some part of measurability is possible, some part of it is not possible. And you'd love to keep it that way. Otherwise, we don't want, tomorrow I don't want somebody to say that, "Arey, udhar you have put up a hoarding. Show me that how many people have, actually seen that hoarding and bought your product, because you're saying that whatever you do, actually the end objective is to sell a product. So I won't be able to justify that. So let's keep it that way only. Yes, certain mediums have become more important. E-commerce, as I was saying, that e-commerce is like after the pandemic, the big will get bigger. There is no room for the small guys unless until you are an ultra niche guy. So when it comes to online behavior, we have found that all the smaller guys, even Paytm is dead for us. Paytm, there was a time when we used to sell through Paytm. Paytm is nowhere; it's gone. Flipkart, Amazon, and to some extent, we are trying to build up a third force, which is Tata Click, because again they have big deep pockets. So today it is a game of people with deep pockets. Only the specialists will survive. Only the big guys will survive. So we have understood that, and we want to focus on certain areas. Yes, measurability has improved, but at the end of the day, we don't want to tinkle with human behavior. What we are saying is that eventually, this virtual world may not come to an end, but things will become more or less normal, because everybody is itching to go back to a normal life. How long will you and I, Mihir and I, will be talking long distance? That has its own advantages, because people can join from different places. Television debates also happen that way for donkey's years, where people can join from New York and stuff like that. But you still have people coming together in a studio and kind of fighting with each other and all that. So which is also interesting, and we want to get back to that. And today, earlier the virtual thing was more out of choice. Today it is it's a necessity, is by force. So whenever you do anything by force, it's not very enjoyable. You know that.
Yeah, that's totally true. I'm so glad that you're of the opinion that everything we do in marketing should not be measured directly, and the flavor of marketing will remain true. With some platforms not being measured. That's really interesting thing to look at. Saurabh, will you want to share some understanding of how measurement has changed for you, in case if something has changed for you, yeah, or is it status quo?
It's very similar to what Vijit talked about, right? Because it's a different business. We don't own the channel. You have a lot of data when you own the channel, right? When you're closer to the consumer is when you own a lot of data. And I would love to own data, by the way. I love making decisions based on data. More data is good in that sense. But when you're looking at a consumer business, you don't have a lot of data because the channel doesn't sit with you. Obviously, you have your own offline sales team. So you understand how many stores do you go to, how many SKUs have you sold, so on and so forth. But when it comes to understanding the e-com as a channel, what the consumers are doing, or trying to understand what is going on with consumers, it's slightly difficult. So for us, the measurement, the way it changed is we actually had no measurement, right? So typically in consumer business, you will have what we typically call the brand imagery data, right? So you will have a brand track. So you will have what is the awareness, you'll have the entire funnel. What is the awareness? What is the trial? What is the repeat? How many people repeated, so on and so forth? What did they think about it? How many people saw your ad? How many people understood your ad, and so on, right? Which gives you a very clear idea of what the consumer is thinking about your brand. Now, all of that data suddenly was not available to us because research was not happening. Offline research was not happening. Similarly, the other key data point that we look at is household penetration, because it's an indicator of what is happening. Because month on month, you get to know, okay, 100 households in India, out of 100 households, 10 households consume me. Next month, you get to know, okay, 12 households are consuming me, and over a period of time, they're building. So you get to understand, whether I'm getting entry into more households, or am I dropping off? Why am I dropping off? What are they consuming? What am I losing out to? Which SKUs, and so on, right? So household penetration is the second most important data point that you have. Now, again, household penetration did not make sense because research was not happening. So the researchers were not allowed in consumers' home. So you did not have that access. So again, that data went off. The third most important data for us is Nielsen, right? Nielsen is just market share data, which will tell you the number of stores that you go to, general trade stores, modern trade stores, what are the total SKUs selling and what are your sales. It's very simply put. And therefore, what is your market share? Again, Nielsen could not do research for a decent period of time. And when they started doing research, I can tell you that the industry is pushing back, saying that there's a lot of gap between what is actually happening and what Nielsen and what HHP are being able to cover, right? So, the measurement actually has gone for a toss in, all this while it's completely gone for a toss. I think what we've completely dependent upon are a couple of things, right? The reliance on cell phone data, which is what we typically call in FMCG internal sales data. I know my shipments, right? I know how many SKUs have I sold to which outlet month on month, and I have that trend. So I get an understand, because it's a cycle, the number of SKUs that I send, how many of them get sold, therefore, what is the reordering looking like? Over a period of time, you do get an understanding of what the consumer is doing. Even though you've not got the consumer offtake data, which is consumer telling you that I bought 100 rupees of a cornflakes, but at the same time, I know that I shipped 500, and in the market next month they ordered for another 100, so I know that much got sold, right? So the reliance on internal data became very important. And the second is reliance on unstructured bits of data became very important. So again, we didn't have all the structured data. What did we rely on? We relied on, common WhatsApp conversations. So we did chat groups, we did in-depth interviews, we did projectile exercise, everything through WhatsApp, right? Whether it was homemakers, whether it was working professional, WhatsApp videos, Zoom videos, for example. We did Zoom video calls wherein we were talking to consumers and understanding what exactly was happening in their household. The second bit of data was, data that is owned by your modern trade accounts because they can share it very easily with you. They have that data as well. But the unstructured data that I was talking about, yeah. So the other thing was what is happening in terms of search, right? So what is share of search looking like? How many people are searching for breakfast? Out of that, how many people are searching for Kellogg's? What is the share of search over a period of time? What is Google telling you in terms of share of search? How many people are searching on Amazon? How many people are searching on YouTube? So on and so forth, right? So unstructured bits of data became very important. And then combining that with an internal sales data, it was about just forming a hypothesis and putting actions in place. Because as I said, a lot of data that we used to depend on suddenly wasn't there. And you know, frankly, that's the beauty of data, right? You can have 100 bits of data and still you might not be 100 times smarter as compared to getting one bit of data, one byte of data, right? It doesn't work like that. So even in absence of not having a brand track or a household penetration data or a Nielsen data, I think we've understood our consumers as much and or better than what we did last year, for example. So I think measurement is just a function of what do you have on table, how do you use it, and how do you keep that effort on in terms of reaching out to your consumer the best way that is possible, and not say that nothing else is possible right now and let's just operate in vacuum.
So this is very, very interesting, and I'll quickly want to understand from you. So as an FMCG product, your dependency on Nielsen research, your household penetration data, dipsticks,
Yeah.
are very high, right? Because that's where you get the actual measurement of what's happening with you versus competitor and category. While you're saying that now all of the research will be available back, but will marketers like us depend as much as on the research company with on the unstructured data that you're able to source from various different pieces to make our understanding lot more better? Do you think we continue to do that in future?
Yeah. So I think a lot has to do with the human behavior, right? As human beings, we want comfort. A lot of times, data gives us that comfort. And you would, working in corporate, you would realize that a lot of times data is required for alignment rather than, knowing what to do. You already know what to do and what is right or what is wrong. But just to get 10 people aligned and get all of them on the same page and say, hey, all of us in the same room, look at this data, is telling you the same thing. I think that's where data goes. Having said that, I do think the reliance on all these bits of data, that's not going to change, because I think that's the way marketing is done. I think it will take a lot of time, and that's actually an issue with FMCGs, if I were to say so. if you look at the fast evolving spaces of, whether you're talking about the startups, whether you're talking about e-commerce, whether you're talking about even within FMCG startups, the way they are approaching building their brands online, right? You don't need to get to 1 million stores. You can be listed on Amazon, you can be listed on Big Basket, and they'll give you the kind of reach that you would have gotten by going to a 1 lakh stores or 10 lakhs. So I think the way the consumer is evolving has changed. The way marketeers have evolved hasn't changed. I think the marketeers still need to catch up. We're still doing the same old way of marketing versus the consumer is evolving really fast. So I do think that there needs to be a shift in the way of gathering data, making sense of data, but I don't see it happening because I don't think we are here to do that. I don't think that corporates incentivize you to do that. So I don't see that changing. So as soon as, let's say, Jan or Feb, when Nielsen starts reporting numbers that are making sense to the FMCG companies or HHP, I think everybody is going to start looking at that data and just be completely comfortable with it. I just hope that we take a few lessons from this, which is saying that even if you don't have data, if you are in constant touch with your consumers, and if you are observing in terms of what they are doing offline and online, you still have a very good handle on your consumers and you don't need to rely on multiple bits of external data. But I don't see it changing.
That's actually great. I hope some of those things change and marketers also start going homes to understand the consumer better and then understand from the data which is available digitally for them to look at. But that's very interesting that marketers are not yet changing and there is a shift that's required. And I think all of us will try and walk towards that change together.
Mihir, if I can interrupt you here.
Sure.
See, what Saurabh was talking about, there was a shift in the channel, the distribution mix altogether. What the example he gave was, Big Basket, where a lot of, new FMCG companies, startup companies are, their selling model has become not through, 1 lakh stores or deep penetration. It is through a Big Basket and all that. So, but, there are certain categories. For example, the category where I'm selling a premium, say, phone. Okay, which is like, our ASP is, say, for example, 50,000 rupees. There we are finding that, we do not need to change our distribution model drastically. We have not felt the need to kind of, if earlier we were selling through 40% or 30% through offline mode, to make that into 20%, or, earlier if you were, selling through the big cities only, to go to the tier 2 and tier 3 towns. We have not seen that. The moment that happens, marketers will follow. It's like marketers has to kind of have no choice but to focus in areas which it can be both ways. Like for example, when this the lockdown happened, and we were actually checking the Google data, what kind of searches consumers were making. And we realized that people were searching for laptops, people were searching for iPads.
Completely.
Okay, so that gave us a cue. The second one was that we found that people were searching for these things from certain particular cities more than other cities. So that gave us second cue. So these are the data which we actually gave it back to our sales team, saying that this is what the trends are showing. Now you please tweak your distribution model. These are the areas, these are the low-hanging fruits. So you focus there. So that's a case of where marketing was actually, kind of, telling sales, where you should distribute and stuff like that. But in other ways, what happens is that based on the distribution model, marketing kind of, follows. So it's a two-way. Some cases, where marketing is actually showing the way. In other cases, marketing is following what, the others, what the distribution team is doing.
Completely. No, I'm completely with you on that understanding, Vijay. So a product which is a premium product, a lot of consumers will want to touch, see, feel, and buy in. That's something which is very difficult to give away for anybody in any market. While a lot of consumers for you will already buy it online from official Apple store now. Who are probably a repeat customer who's been loyal Apple users for many years in past. So that's something, which will be, of course, very different from, different businesses. Great. We'll actually have to, go towards the last phase of the discussion, where we'll probably take up a couple of questions from, participants. There is a question from Rachit Luthra. Rachit, this is your question, and I believe you addressed this to Abhijit. And of course, Abhijit is the best person to probably answer this question. Right? So this is about future of B2B marketing, and what skills should he have to build his career in technology marketing. Abhijit, in case if you could give him some mantra from your.
So B2B marketing is a very, wherever you have a defined audience, obviously you don't need to do a carpet bombing. You do a precision bombing. So you really know which are the accounts where you need to go, and it's a manageable number of accounts. So you go one-on-one. One of the main things about B2B marketing, and it has been proved by research also, and LinkedIn has done a lot of research in this space, where it was found that events are one of the big things for as far as B2B marketing is concerned. All those CIO roundtables and stuff like that. Now, what had happened was that all of a sudden, that big leg, that events were gone. You can't have a physical event. So when we talked about event, we talked about physical event. There is nothing like now we are talking about virtual event, but it was always a physical event where you assemble people from a particular place. Everybody got together, there were sessions, there were some amount of, spot purchases and stuff like that. Or, then there was something called networking. So it was great. Now that thing was totally gone. And that the event agencies, which were very badly affected by this, now they came up with a kind of a virtual avatar of on physical events. So they also evolved. So now you have this, so-called, digital events, which try to give you a kind of a experience. So that way, to come back to that, the main thing that I say, again, more we say things have changed. Reality is that more the things have really stayed the same. It is still, one-on-one communication mostly. It is still events. Earlier it was a physical events. Now you're doing a virtual event. Going forward, as things normalize, you will have a mix and match of both. You will have some physical events. You will have some virtual events also. I think virtual events are not going to go away because it's nice and cheap. B2B marketing, the most important thing is that, and the most interesting thing is that it is very cost effective. Measurement is something that everybody is talking about. Measurement is something that you can do in B2B marketing. You send a communication and you are asking for an action. You send a communication to Mihir and you have asked Mihir for an action. And if Mihir has taken that action on behalf of his company, then you can measure that, yes, your communication has been effective. But B2B, I would say that marketing is often the opening of the doors, or it's a constant communication that you do with a set of accounts. But it is part of a much larger mix where relationships, constantly, going back to the same guy, your sales team, all these things, people, play a very important role. So yes, some of it has changed, but some of it, I would say that it's going to go back to what it was earlier. And it will remain as always a very important segment.
That's really great. I have another question from Shruti, which will be something that I would request Amit to answer. Amit, the question is how mobile marketing and especially advertising in between games and reward based or incentivized ads are shaping up for online businesses.
So I think during pandemic, gaming industry has gone up by more than 150%, right? Jungly 24/7, Adda 52, their Rummy business has taken a really good hit, like uplift during that. Even if you talk about Dream11, And then there are some more cricket gaming companies which has taken raised a lot of funds, and then they have seen a lot of spike as well. People are using gaming. The only problem is whenever you talk about incent based marketing, then actually you're not getting a user which you want to do, because people are watching a video, they are getting 10 to 15 coins, and then just because of that you are getting those users. So the retention is very poor. Definitely you can do marketing in gaming, but with a pinch of salt. Those retention and lifetime value of those users are not really great. That is a problem with gaming whenever you do any incent traffic. And just because of that, whenever you do affiliate marketing, so incent traffic is a part of affiliate marketing. Whenever you talk about affiliate marketing, you always try to remain yourself away from all the incent traffic, because their intent is not really great and their retention is really poor.
Great. So that was an answer, which hope ma'am you got the answer back for your question. There's actually two questions which Saurav, if you could help us with. So there's a question from Ayush Srivastav. He says he wanted to understand how a pharma company could build strong relationship with their consumer. And there's another question from Fatima Haji, which would also be in the same, it's slightly different, but it's healthcare marketing, and she wanted to understand, how you see healthcare marketing shaping up as a career for consumers. So these are two questions, if you could sort of help us with, because this is very close to uh, you than everybody else.
Sure. So obviously, not completely work in healthcare, but if you're talking about a consumer-facing healthcare business, which is, uh, if you're talking about packaged goods, which is very close to OTC, etc. Uh, I'm guessing, what has definitely happened is health has become top of mind, and it's going to stay. By the way, I think this paranoia of uh, an impending disaster or a pandemic, etc., has become real. Before this, it wasn't real, right? Ebola has happened, swine flu has happened, avian flu has happened. A lot of things happened, right? But nobody reacted to it in such a manner, and this hula baloo that we've created never happened that way. And I think therefore the consumer definitely has a tremendous amount of concern that they have. Now, if you are in a business which can make the consumer's life better through healthcare, whether it's through products or services, uh, I think this is the right time for you to enter the category and build the category, right? Which is, for example, the example that I was giving you of the Saffola, so not the Saffola, sorry, Maricos of the world, or Godrej, or Dettol. The way they looked at an opportunity, saying, or Reckitt Benckiser looking at an opportunity, saying that consumers are worried about hygiene, but at the same time they want convenience in hygiene. You don't want to wash your vegetables, keep them aside, then wash them again. So we make a simple veggie clean wherein you put it in water for 15 minutes, soak it, and rinse it in water, and you're ready. Similarly, rather than worrying about cleaning each and every surface with soap, take a spray, and you can just spray just like a deodorant. You can just spray it across, and it's a very easy form of application. So I think this is the right time for if you are in that business to make an entry and make your brand or your category relevant. What you need to definitely understand is what the consumer tension is, right? And there's a very thin line, by the way, between helping the consumer and exploiting the consumer. And a lot of companies have also exploited the consumer. There are a lot of companies who have stayed away from. So, for example, Kellogg globally said that we will not talk about anything to do with immunity, or we will not talk about anything to do with how can we make consumers' life better because of pandemic. We will still talk about our core promise that we deliver nutrition, and this is the time wherein you should be concerned about nutrition, and that's it, right? But there are companies who started talking about it'll give you more immunity, and scientifically proven nobody can deliver immunity, right? It is not so easily delivered. Otherwise, all of us would be immune to every single disease that is there in the world, right? So I think you need to understand what the consumer tension is. You need to understand what that thin line wherein between exploiting and actually solving a problem in the consumer's life. And the third is, if I were a healthcare brand, whether it's a product or a service, I think it's the right time for you to become much more, present in the consumer's mind, which is through media. So what media, and there are different types of media like Abhijit was talking about. There's outdoor, there is travel, there is obviously TV, OTT, all of that, radio, all of that, right? So which of these is relevant? So design your media mix accordingly. Figure out what the consumer tension is. Figure out what is your solution going to be, which is bordering on solving something for the consumer and not exploiting the consumer. And evaluate the right kind of delivery of channel delivery, right? Because also what has happened is, like I was telling you, for example, e-com for us was very small till last year. Right now, e-com for us is really big, and I don't think, by the way, that is going to change. Even if the pandemic subsides by Q1, a lot of consumers who are now very comfortable buying Kellogg's cornflakes or a muesli or a granola online will continue to do it, because okay, now why do I need to go into a store at all? Because earlier I thought that was the only way of doing it. But for the last 5 months, I have created this list, and it's an auto list wherein I go, I put it on Big Basket, and I buy it and I get it. So I think the consumer behavior is changing. So again, if you're a healthcare brand, there is a lot of action that is happening in terms of online channels itself, and how do you become relevant, and how do you reach your consumer in terms of the right kind of channel. So those are the 3 things that I think you should concentrate upon.
Great. There are a lot of other questions, but I think we'll be short of time. We already short of time, and we'll not be able to take up a lot of questions by some of you. So Sachin, Meg, Neeraj, Muskan, it will be a little difficult for us to take all your questions today. While in case if possible, what we could do is we could some of the questions I'll try and send a reply to whatever to you later. Yeah, separately. Cool. I would like to before Saurabh, Abhijit, Amit, before we end the session, I would like to ask you, in case if you have a personal marketing mantra that you want to leave our audience with, in a quick way.
Sure. I think there are a lot many students are there. I think there are so many questions around their career path. As Abhijit and Mihir was talking about that, Saurabh was talking about that there are a lot many traditional mediums which is not gonna to get away or go away in near future. Definitely, it's like a method in madness, which all the marketers always try to figure out how they can get the best buck for their best ROI for their buck, right? So the best point is even Saurabh was also talking about, if you can rely on the data, if you can get a data, and if you try to figure out how you can get that data for a customer, and if you're really close to your customer, then definitely you can do a lot many miracles within the marketing itself, right? You can enhance your profitability and ROI, which so many different companies are doing. There are so many different startups which are booming in Indian space, and which are talking to a user into a different aspect and next level altogether. So I think that is a way to go. If you want to get a job, if you want to stay ahead in a curve, then maybe just try to get into such kind of a jobs, which will definitely provide you some kind of a knowledge and benefit in a longer term.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Abhijit or Saurabh? Yeah, Abhijit.
Okay, so see, wherever there is a change in consumer behavior is going to happen, the marketer has to follow. If a consumer has figured out that you don't need to go. If I've got used to paying money through a Paytm or a Phone Pay or Google Pay, I have found the convenience of that. I don't need to keep cash in my wallet. So there is a behavior change which has happened. Similarly, what Saurabh was saying, that if people have got used to buying Kellogg's, every time the Kellogg's is the same, and you buy it, every time. It's not something that you buy once in a while. So it's in a way it's like a chore. So you just instead of going to the store, you just order it online. You have got used to it. So wherever a behavior change has happened in terms of consumer buying behavior has happened, the marketer has to kind of follow suit. The marketer doesn't need to kind of try very hard to, for example, what we do is that when this, big billion day happens in Flipkart, we spend a lot of money on the Flipkart platform itself. That's part of a purchase deal that we do with Flipkart. So at any point of time, Flipkart is advertising. So many people are coming to the platform. At any given point of time, so many platform people are there. If somebody is looking at a X phone and I want that person to migrate to a Y phone, I mean, I pop up my advertising on the Flipkart platform itself. Now, if tomorrow, say for example, if tomorrow 100% of my sales happen through a Flipkart, Amazon, or or similar platforms, e-commerce platforms, then I don't need to do all the other things that we are doing now. I will forget a lot of other things. I will focus primarily into advertising, spending 80% of my money on those platforms and getting them when they are actually influencing their buying behavior, when they are actually coming to that platform. So what happens is that, so it means that, your marketers would have to kind of transform themselves in terms of the change in consumer behavior. Wherever a consumer behavior change is very pronounced, a marketer has to change. Wherever it's not very pronounced, minor, changes happen. It's more a question of tweaking your whole strategy.
That's great. Saurabh, you have any personal mantra to share with us?
I think my personal mantra, not specifically talking about this time, but my personal mantra is very, very simple. As a marketer, you need to be very comfortable gathering data. And by data, I mean both structured and unstructured data. And talking to a consumer, or even looking at your house help, or looking at how people are, sitting and having chai at Chayos is data, by the way. So, as a marketer, you need to be curious. So my personal mantra is, if you want to be a great marketer, you have to be extremely curious and innately curious. And you can get data from anywhere. So, Abhijit and Amit work in very different industries, but there are so many relevant parallels that I can take from this conversation that can actually help me figure out how I can do my job better at Kellogg's, right? So that's my personal mantra. Be very curious, be very comfortable with data. And data doesn't mean Excel sheets. Data means talking to consumers. Data means observing things, looking at modern trade shelves, looking at like big billion days, what people are running, why are they running, so on and so forth. That's what data is.
That's really helpful. That's really helpful. I'll like, before I end the session, I'll want to thank Abhijit Lahiri, Mr. Abhijit Lahiri, Mr. Amit Verma, and Saurabh Nath to give us their precious time today and share a lot of understanding of the change which has happened from pre-COVID to lockdown to when it's opening up. And I'm so glad that all my marketeers friends are thinking that everything is so much better than what it was during lockdown and what we were anticipating. And hopefully marketing will be much exciting in 2021. Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you for your time.
Thank
you.
Thanks for inviting. Thanks for letting me speak.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great session. Bye-bye. Have a good day.